Thank you for joining us for this episode of Inside Town Hall. I'm your host, Madeline Shields. Running for office is a huge commitment, not only for the candidate, but also for their family. And we are starting off this meeting one of our newly elected city councilors, Richard Thomason. Thank you for joining us. You are serving at large in the city of Sioux Falls. Tell us a little bit about why you ran for office, and now you're in, and we want to know all about it. What you think?
Well, it all started when Alex Jensen decided not to run last year, and thankfully the people of Sioux Falls elected me last April. Oh, no, excuse me. It was last April because our first meeting was May. So I was elected last April and have already been going to meetings since May, and it's been crazy.
You know, a lot of people say, well, I don't know if I'm qualified to run for office, but anyone who's a citizen is able to run for office and learning the ropes. It's tell us a little bit about the process, or how do you start drinking out of a fire hose as you start getting all of this information?
Sure. So are you talking in terms of running or actually being on the city council?
Both, being elected and the whole process.
So when you start off, you obviously get some friends together or close confidants, and they just kind of say, hey, if you want to do this, this is kind of your path. And you put a game plan together, and you got to make sure that you have the desire and the will to serve. It's not for the faint of heart sometimes. A lot of things can be thrown your direction on a campaign trail, but it's very rewarding, and then especially more rewarding when you get on to a city council or into the state legislature or wherever you may be, and really diving in there and making sure that you learn all of the rules. You get to know the people that are working with you, you get to know the people that are working around you, and you just take each day as it kind of comes, because you can get thrown at different curveballs every now and then.
Sure. Give us your background. You're not originally from Sioux Falls.
Well, I moved here when I was 2.5, so I would like to say that I'm as Sioux Fallsian as you can be, but I went to Patrick Henry Middle School, Panther Pride, and then went to Sioux Falls Lincoln, and after that I went to the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota. The reason I went there is the University of St. Thomas at the time was 100 out of 100 schools in the country. They had a 4-year undergraduate degree in real estate studies. So I have a 4-year degree in real estate studies. It's the only Bachelor of Science out of the business school. And after college, I had an opportunity to work in Chicago, to stay in Minneapolis, or come back home. And I was really excited to come back home. I enjoyed my time in Minneapolis and think fondly on my time there, but I've been very happy to be here.
Well, I was looking. It said you moved here with your family in '94, and I wasn't assuming how old you were. Yeah. So I didn't know if you moved here when you were 2.5. You're from Sioux Falls.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what your journey has been so far on the city council. Were there any big surprises, or is it what you've expected?
Well, I think every time you get into something, there's things you don't expect. I would say that probably the biggest thing thus far was the budget comes up pretty quickly after you get elected, and so you really start diving into different numbers and different departments, and it can be a lot, but you have a really good staff at Carnegie Hall, and you also have really good other counselors that you can lean on, and there was a lot of communication and discussing some of those things with us new counselors, but other than that, there hasn't been too many surprises.
Sure. And like you said, you have run for office before. You were in the legislature. How is it different being a legislator compared to being a city councilor? Well,
number one is you get to sleep in your own bed every night, which is pretty nice, because when you're in Pierre, you're driving out there typically on a Sunday or a Monday and then coming back 4 days later. But one of the biggest differences, and I do believe that there is, for every type of government we have, they have their own reason why they're there, our federal government, our state government, our local governments. But one thing that is so rewarding about being on city council is getting to see some of the changes that you enact and live and breathe it. And then that can help you learn on, okay, this is what we did really well this time, but it can also help you learn on, we maybe didn't do it as well as we should have, so what can we do to tweak it? Where sometimes in the state legislature, you're passing something in the way northeast part of the state, and you don't really know how it goes unless you reach out to some people that may live out there, the other representatives or senators from there. So it is really rewarding to be in the place that you're making a difference all the time.
Sure. What are some of the things that made you want to run for city council? Like, what are your goals? What do you see happening in the next year, 2 years, and 4 years as well?
Sure. So I like to say that I like to be as proactive as possible and not have to be reactive. Now, you always have to be reactive. There are some times where a car starts sliding in front of you on ice, and you can't maybe guess that that's going to happen. But my goal is to really make sure that we are setting ourselves up not just for 3 years down the line, but 20, 30, 50 years down the line, because we've experienced a lot of growth, as you know, and as everybody has known for quite some time, and that growth is not going to slow down. And so I really want to look at some innovative things that we can do, that we can set up now, that maybe I won't be a part of it at that time, but it's something that you look back on and say, wow, we're glad that city council from 2024 to 2028 set that up, because this has been really awesome now that it's 2050.
What have you been hearing from constituents so far since you've been here for a few months?
Yes.
What's on top of people's minds right now?
There's a host of things. I would say you kind of run in a unique time when you've got a presidential election going on during the year. Some people, which is good for them to get to know, but it's a nonpartisan race, right? We don't run with any designation behind our names, and we work more on city business than some other policies that are out there. But a lot of the things that you hear are, how do we keep our park systems up and going? What can we do to keep our roads as improved as possible, which I think we're doing a pretty good job with. We are talking about some different pools right now. That's been a pretty hot topic amongst some people, where some people want to see it stay the same, where others want to innovate and maybe have some indoor pools or have some other amenities attached to the pool. So it's really just, whatever that issue is at that time. When I was running, there was a lot of talk about real estate and property taxes. That is something that is a very hot topic right now as well.
Sure. So a lot of quality of life issues is what people are looking for. Over the years, we've talked so much about transportation, and now that seems to be being addressed with the new VIA system coming in, and some of that on-demand indoor pools versus outdoor pools.
Yes.
That's. Do you think that's going to continue to be an issue as Sioux Falls continues to grow?
I think anytime you look at our environment, talking about the transportation part first, you do need those extra services for people where, if it's negative 20 degrees out and they need to get to a hospital and they live 4 miles away, you don't want them walking all the way there. And how the old system was set up, they could have had 5, 6, 7 stops. We've been able to, and I was not a part of it, but I've been very happy with what I've seen since I've been on the council on how streamlined the routes are going to be, the on-demand aspect for people that need it. And so, that was something that wasn't looked at for, 2 decades plus, and that's what I was talking about earlier of where can we make sure that we're thinking about something long ago, so that when we get to a point we don't have to have such a massive revamp. And then with the indoor water, it's the same thing with the environment that we're in. It would be nice to have something that you can use all year round. Parks, you can go out and snow walk or snow ski or whatever you want to do. But when it comes to taking kids to go somewhere inside, or just a family that wants to go to a wading pool or something like that, it'd be nice to have something year round.
Anything really right on the edge for the next 12 months that we're going to hear as a city?
Probably not that I could either A, say, or B, that I can think of right now. But I would say the pool thing really that's going to be something that's coming up in November for us on the city council that we'll need to take a look at. Okay.
All right. Well, anything else you want to tell the public? This is your first time on Inside Town Hall, but it won't be your last.
Yes.
And so if people have questions or concerns, or how's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so on the City of Sioux Falls website, there's a City Council tab, and then you can click on that tab, council members, and then there's an email address there that I look at daily. Sure. The one thing is we all have jobs outside of City Council, so I may not be able to reply, instantaneously, but it is always my goal to get back within a couple days. And we do have phone numbers on there as well, and so you can always call that and leave a message if I'm not able to pick up. help.
All right. When we come back, we will meet the person who navigates international trade for the city of Sioux Falls and South Dakota. We will be back in just a moment.
Hello, I'm Dr. Raymond with Falls Community Health. I'm here today to talk to you about the importance of annual wellness exams. So many of us only go to the doctor whenever we're sick or feeling unwell, but did you know that you can prevent many health problems by just going to an annual wellness visit? Things like high blood pressure and diabetes and well child checks can help stop things before they get out of control. If you have any questions about an annual wellness exam or need to get one scheduled, contact your physician.
Well, welcome back to Inside Town Hall. South Dakota has many goods and services to offer across the globe, and today we are going to meet Luke Lindberg, who is joining us for Inside Town Hall. He navigates international trade for South Dakota. Why is, Councilor Thomason, why is trade so important for Sioux Falls and for South Dakota?
Well, it's very unknown that actually 10% of our state's GDP comes from international trade, and I believe it's around 27,000 jobs that it employs.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, great. Well, we're going to hear from Mr. Lindberg, who is going to tell us more about international trade in South Dakota and what are some of our goods and services that we offer.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. It's great to be with you. And we often break down international trade into two kind of main buckets. One that South Dakota is quite good at, and that's the farm exporting piece. So if you look at South Dakota's exports as a whole, we export about $7 billion a year of goods and services around the world, and about $5 billion of that is in the ag economy. And we're actually second in the nation per capita in ag exports. So we're doing great on that front. When it comes to our non-farm exports, that $2 billion or so, I'd say we're not doing quite as well. We're actually 48th or 49th in terms of the 50 states in what we've been doing on the non-farm side. And I think that's largely been because we didn't have an organization like South Dakota Trade, which I represent now, until about 18 months ago. So we were one of the last states to get an international trade office that was fully functioning, up and running in the state. And we're starting to see some of those returns come about. For example, we took a delegation to Mexico last year and we're able to generate a 73x return on investment. So for every dollar we put into that trade mission, our companies experienced $73 worth of sales. So we're seeing some of those wins early on here, but there's a lot more room to grow and more momentum to have. But that's how I kind of break it down, is that ag economy side and the non-farm side as well.
Who goes on these trade missions with you?
Yeah, we typically focus most of our programming on small and medium exporters. We call them SMEs. So it tends to be organizations that need the help. We have some great bigger exporters in our state, like Daktronics and Poet, who have really sophisticated exporting operations. But the companies we tend to focus more on are smaller organizations that need a little bit of help. So one of the programs we have is called the State Trade Expansion Program. And it's a federal grant that comes from the U.S. Small Business Administration that allows us to take dollars and actually give them out to companies that want to increase their exports overseas. And we don't get to keep those dollars, they go right to those exporters. And they can use those to participate on one of our trade missions, take some export education, translate their website into another language. There's a very flexible program in terms of how they can utilize those dollars. But in our first 18 months, we've actually secured $625,000 of worth of grants from that program that, again, go out to our companies here in South Dakota. And so that's why we tend to target those small and medium exporters, or folks that are getting into exporting, new to export companies, as we call them.
Historically, we've heard about all of these trade missions and going, corn and soybeans, and like you said, the farm economy.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that? We think of crops first and foremost. What else in the ag community is being exported, and to where?
Yeah, our top exporting markets around the world, Canada and Mexico would be number one, number two. China and Japan would be following up right after that. We do have a very robust soybean export business in South Dakota, corn as well, pork, beef, those different ag segments, and they've got really national collaborators they work with. For example, the U.S. Soybean Export Council is a great example of an organization that helps our soybean farmers right here in South Dakota sell their products all over the world. It's, again, really those companies that don't have those large national associations that can help them sell their products. And so one of the industry segments I like to highlight is around the defense sector, the military arms production. So many states have sort of shunned the idea of having guns or arms manufacturers in their state. Our governor, on the other hand, has opened up a really new pipeline of companies that come to South Dakota to build their arms and manufacturing right here. We're helping those companies export their products all over the world. We help the South Dakota Biotech Association as a partner of ours, so we work with biotech companies. The South Dakota Trust Association is a member of ours. We work with trust companies. Many people don't realize that a lot of the trust assets that are housed here in South Dakota, that $500 billion worth of trust assets we have, many of those dollars come from overseas individuals who want the secure place to store their assets in the United States, and what better place to do so than right here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Can you tell me a little bit about what some of these very small companies are that are trying to export? And is it goods? Is it services? Are people making like retail things and then sending them internationally?
Yeah, we've got a great company that's in the Sioux Falls metropolitan area right here that makes dog kennels and sells those. Okay. Many people know about this particular company. They sell them all over the world now, and we've been able to help find new markets for them, help them market their products and sell them overseas. We've got a small manufacturer here that has an automobile part that is very successful and has sold that in a number of different markets. I think 30 now different markets around the world. You can buy it right here, but you can also export it overseas. We've got some service providers, so people that offer some online artificial intelligence, some kind of computerized service to people, and we can help them position their product or their service in this case overseas as well. So the stories are in there's a lot of different opportunities in different segments. One of the stats I frequently go back to is that the U.S. Small Business Administration says that 2 out of every 5 companies have a potentially exportable product. So if you walk down Main Street or Phillips Avenue right outside here, and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different businesses, 2 of those businesses should be exporting. Right now in South Dakota, that number is less than 10%. In my mind, we have a 30-point gap. We need to get to 40% of our companies exporting, and we're only at less than 10%. So there's a lot of work to do to convince those companies that they'd want to take that plunge and get their products out in the market, where oftentimes they can get a better price than they can domestically.
Okay. So, for instance, some of these companies, have they figured out how to export just to other states first, and then they start having success in other places than South Dakota? Then they call you in and say, okay, maybe we want to do Mexico and Canada and see how that works.
It really depends on the person or the company. So in some instances, that's the case, right? They sell locally, then they start to grow their product regionally and go from there. That's a very common situation. We also get these companies that say, hey, I made this niche product, and I got an email about it from somebody in Canada or the UK. They want to buy my product. I have no idea how to do this. Can I sell it to them? How do I sell it to them? What's the process look like? And so we tend to take those kinds of companies and put them through our Export 101 coursework that really teaches them the basics from how do I market myself, how do I deal with compliance, how do I get my product from point A to point B, right? How do I deal with the customs paperwork? We have a really concerted effort to be able to address those specific new companies in that space. But you find different opportunities for different folks, present themselves in different ways.
Okay. So now, and you navigate international trade for South Dakota. Where are you located, and who do you report to? Like, what are you under an umbrella of some government agency?
Yeah, great question. People get this very frequently. So many states, in fact, most states have a trade office that's part of their state government. In our case, we are a public-private partnership. So South Dakota, low tax state, really made a decision that we wanted to have the private sector have some skin in the game. And so for us, we have a 501c6 organization. So I report to a board of directors. I have 9 bosses that I work with every day. Many of them are exporters themselves. To help those companies, find their niche in their products. But there's a strategic choice we made of locating right here in Sioux Falls. So this is where our headquarters is. We have an office in Rapid City as well now. But the Sioux Falls economy is really the one that's best primed for exporting more than almost any other market in the state of South Dakota. And that's just a function of nearness to rail, for example, as a way to get your product on a transportation mechanism that can sell it overseas. But it's also the ecosystem and the types of products we make in Sioux Falls are really well positioned to be able to be sold internationally.
Councilor, have you worked with Mr. Lindberg before on these types of things? And I know you're new to the City Council, but what's your reaction to this partnership and how this will move Sioux Falls ahead? Because I think if people start seeing things are manufactured in South Dakota or Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that's going to make more of a name for the city.
Yes, no, I think it's incredible what Luke is doing with his team here in Sioux Falls and out in Rapid. And while we haven't had a chance to, per se, work together yet, I am a big advocate of what he's trying to do. And as he said, we're one of the last states that has an association like this, and no one better to lead it than Luke to come in and help get that off the ground. The people that he employs here in Sioux Falls, and like he said, just the variety of industry that we have in Sioux Falls, from farming to banking to retailers to anything that you name, to be able to have someone like Luke to call and help export, it's amazing.
Okay. Can you explain, let's talk a little bit about the 501c6. A lot of people have heard of 501c3 because they know that's a nonprofit. What is the difference between a 501c3 and a 501c6?
Yeah, we're a chamber of commerce, essentially.
Okay.
Same thing as the Sioux Falls Area Chamber, same structure as that. Gives us a little more flexibility to be membership driven as opposed to just strictly on a donation side. But in essence, we're a public-private partnership. Okay. We do get a little bit of funding from the state, and then we get funding as well from the private sector to supplement that funding to make our budget a whole.
Okay. Is your board a volunteer board or is it a managed board?
Volunteer board, yep. They employ us to do the work of the organization, and then obviously they select me as the CEO, and then they set my compensation and things, and let us run with the details of the day-to-day.
So if somebody's out here watching right now and thinks, I have this product and I think maybe people somewhere else would appreciate it, what's the process? What do they have to do?
The best thing to do to start is to send us an email at info@South Dakota Trade, all spelled out, info@SouthDakotaTrade.com. Very easy, and again, we have everything from that exact question. I've never exported before, I need some help, can you coach me how this process is done? To, man, I really have been an active exporter for a number of years, but I've only been exporting to 1 or 2 markets. Can you help me pick my next market? We've got tools and resources available for both those scenarios, and even above and beyond that, we partner with, for example, the Beacom School of Business at the University of South Dakota. Great partnership with them. And what they'd help us do is really take a 301, 401 level coursework and provide it to our expert exporters. So folks like Poet and Daktronics, I mentioned earlier, frequently send their employees who are in the business day to day exporting all over the world. We coach them on the new best practices in supply chain management and that sort of thing as well. So I'd say we have that full spectrum, but if folks are looking to get involved, that Export 101 course, a first phone call with me and the team is the best place to start.
And if I may add to something that he said, what is also incredible about his team is even if you are exporting right now and you feel like you're maybe not the most efficient with it, still give them a call. It doesn't matter where you are in that type of exporting business. It doesn't matter if you're at the end and wanting to go to a different state or a different country, or if you're at the very beginning or you've already started. So give him a call for anything and he'll be able to help you out.
That's right.
So would a small business pay a fee for your consulting and your help?
No. Yeah, we're not a fee-based organization. We do have a membership option for companies, but largely our dues and the investments that are made from the private sector come from other associations like the South Dakota Corn Growers Association, for example. So no, it's free to work with us. We're happy to provide that service. And again, one of the things to add on to Councilman Thomason's comments there is we also have this STEP grant program where we'll give you free money if you want to expand your exporting business. So if you are actively exporting today and you want to go to a trade show overseas, call us and we can provide you with an up to $10,000 grant to attend a trade show to cover some of the costs of flights and hotels and trade show booths and that kind of thing as well. And again, those resources are all free, courtesy of the U.S. federal government and the U.S. Small Business Administration. Free in that we pay taxes, but free to the folks that take advantage of them.
Sure. So do you ever get, I have to ask the question, do you ever get somebody that says, hey, I want to sell this, and you're like, yeah, no, maybe that probably might not fly. But what's your encouragement for them to continue on?
Yeah, again, we do a process when we have those kind of questions come about where we'll take a look at whether their product is actively selling in that market. So we've got data tools that help us to say, Yeah, whey protein, which is growing in South Dakota, is a great product in the following 5 markets. So we might advise you to go to one of those markets as opposed to necessarily the one you're in, unless you have an active buyer, in which case we can help you negotiate or figure out that contract. But we do have ways to coach you specifically on where your product will be most successful. But the stories you'll hear in this business are infinite in terms of the possibilities. And the one that we frequently joke, Cinnamon King, many of you have been in this industry for a long time, know or have heard of her name. She's the U.S. Department of Commerce's representative here in South Dakota. She frequently tells a story about a small farmer here in South Dakota who found out that prairie dogs were a very hot commodity in Japan, and so she was helping a South Dakota person export prairie dogs to Japan, in which I think many of us are happy to get rid of many of the prairie dogs that exist here, and the Japanese wanted to get them. So I would say if you can export prairie dogs to Japan, you could probably figure out how to export your product if you're making it right here in South Dakota.
Sure. Well, that's an interesting story. Thank you so much for joining us. That's very great information.
My pleasure.
For anybody who wants to get a hold of Mr. Lindberg, it's at info@southdakotatrade.com. And thank you for joining us for Inside Town Hall, and welcome to the Sioux Falls City Council and to the show.
Yes.
You will not be a stranger here for the next 4 years. And so if you would like to contact Councilman, our new councilman, go to siouxfalls.gov. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.